Let's move on to talk a little bit more about market equilibrium. You might be familiar with this, you might not be too familiar with this. Either way, we'll go through it. The price at equilibrium. So we have a price at equilibrium and a quantity at equilibrium, right? This is where supply and demand meet. This is where equilibrium can move, right? Because maybe demand goes up, supply goes down, right? Whatever the factor may be. So you can also have artificial constraints, right? We have price ceiling and price floor. Examples of these could be the minimum wage, and we have price ceiling would be rent control. Those are the classic examples. Price floor, this is you can't go below this price in minimum wage, you can't go above this price ceiling. And these are artificial constraints on the natural flow of supply and demand. If the price is set below the equilibrium price, then the quantity demanded will exceed the quantity supplied, which will result in a shortage. And similarly, if the price is set above the equilibrium price, then the quantity demanded will be less than the quantity supplied, which will result in a surplus. Just kind of got to be familiar with, right, this chart, how it looks, knowing if the price is set above equilibrium, then we have a price floor. Below, it's a shortage. Nothing crazy. You got this. I believe in you. SWOT analysis. Now, this is something that could be viewed as a sim. I mean, it could be very easily be a sim on the exam. It probably won't get a multiple choice on this. I'll be honest with you. Really, the essence here would be a sim. And you might think, oh, well, that's easy. I don't really need to worry about that. What's difficult about this? It's a commonly asked sim, and what you might see is a whole list of factors, right? Maybe a factor of, oh, we have a super smart CEO, or our competitors just fell apart, or prices got really low. Whatever it is, these factors, good or bad, we're going to categorize them into 4 categories. We have positive and negative factors. Well, those are pretty easy to distinguish between, right? If all of a sudden our demand for our product significantly goes up, I would say that's positive. If all of a sudden we have a contamination of our factory, we have to shut it down, that's negative. So I'm going to assume that that's pretty clear to you. However, well, would we classify something as a strength or opportunity depending on, we know it's positive, but is it a strength or opportunity? That depends if it's internal to the company or external. Now, if we have a super smart CFO, right, or CFO, whatever, CEO, there's so many COO, CTO, there's so many C-suite individuals. Well, that's an internal factor. We have someone strong at the helm to run the company. That's internal, whereas all of a sudden, if prices of our raw materials significantly go down, that's external. That's not us, right? That's an external factor. And that's an opportunity. You could think of that, it's an opportunity to seize, right? We already have this internal strength. We have a super smart individual running our company. Whereas with the opportunity, something we can act on. Similarly, maybe we have our employees are just so demotivated. They don't want to do any work. The company morale is at an all-time low. That's an internal factor. It applies just to us, and it's a weakness right? It's negative factor, so it's a weakness. Externally, threat. Maybe our competitors are trying to buy our company and force us out. That's external. It's not internal, and that's a threat. It's a negative factor. That's external. That is a threat. So the trick would just come from knowing if it's internal or external and then distinguishing between these two for each. Just memorize this, be familiar, nothing too crazy, but you would see this in a sim if you were to see it. And if you memorize this, you are going to ace that sim. Complements and substitutes. Okay. Now, these are, think of products. I mean, they could be services, but think of them as products. Just easier to wrap your head around. Now, complements are products that go up together. So, I mean, you could say even services too, right? If an economy is doing well, maybe legal services and accounting services are both in high demand. So they both go up together. But here we have homes built and furniture sold. Well, the more homes are built, generally is going to result in more furniture sold. And if there's more furniture sold, that probably means more homes are being built. Now, I'm not going to say what the correlation between these are. It's not important. right? I'm not saying it's 1 for 1. I'm not saying it's a correlation of 0.5. It's just they are complements, just like cold cuts or hot dogs and hamburger buns, right? The bread for a sandwich versus what goes in the sandwich. That was the go to example in school. Whereas substitutes, where one increases in sales or one does better, the other does worse. And this is all about demand. So as the demand for Pepsi goes up, the demand for Coca-Cola goes down, right? They can't live together. I guess they got to live together in this big wonderful world of ours. Otherwise, one would be a monopoly. And that's all I'm going to say here. Nothing too crazy. Just make sure you're familiar with the concept of complements and substitutes. Porter's five forces. This is a concept to be familiar with. Nothing crazy here either. Just memorize the Porter's five forces. These were all created by Michael Porter, who's an individual at Harvard. You don't need to know that, but just a little background, like who is Porter? What is this? What the heck is this, Nick? Tell me. Well, I'm telling you. All of these factors have a significant effect on the competitive environment and profitability of a firm. That's essentially what these are. That's the point of all of this. This is a model that identifies and analyzes the five competitive forces, which Michael Porter identified and wrote papers about, which affect every industry and help determine an industry's strengths and weaknesses. So you see, it kind of relates to our SWOT analysis. It helps to explain why certain industries are able to maintain profitability. Makes sense, right? If it's hard to have a new competitor enter the market, well, you're probably going to do well. If you've got good bargaining power, you're probably going to do well. If the threat of substitutes is not that strong, you'll probably do well, et cetera, there. You can pretty much read through these, and they are pretty clearly making sense. Internal competition, that would be from rivalries. So the model can be used as a guide to shift business strategy in order to increase competitive advantage. You want to start a company, analyze these five forces, make sure you understand what is lurking out there to try to force the demand away from you and to a competitor. This is something to just memorize these five, and could be a sim, could be a multiple choice question, but nothing too pressing. You got it.
Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.